everyone, it's Sarah. Welcome back to my channel, or for those of you who are watching for the first time, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about teacher letter of recommendations for the college application process. I have students ask me all the time questions about teacher letter recommendations. They ask me how many letters they need. They ask me which teachers do I ask and how do I even go about asking for these letters. And so in today's video, I'm going to address those questions so that when you guys apply to college, you'll know how to approach the letter of recommendations portion. So let's start with the number of letters. A lot of students have no idea how many letters to submit. And to be fair, it's a little tricky to know because each college and university in the US has slightly different requirements about what kinds of letters they want. But I would say a general rule of thumb is that colleges and universities typically require 3 letters of recommendation, 2 from teachers of core subject areas, and 1 from the guidance counselor at your high school. Core subject areas include things like calculus and English and physics and chemistry. And it's typically not recommended that you have 2 letters from teachers of the same core subject area. So if you're a math star, I don't really advise you get letters from both your calculus teacher and your trig teacher, just because it doesn't showcase different parts of you as an applicant. Now, some schools will allow you to submit additional letters of recommendation, and by all means, you should do that if you have other people who you feel will write you strong letters of recommendation. However, it is important to note that for letters of recommendation, quality is always more important than quantity. And so if you can submit 3 really strong letters that adhere to the guidelines of the college or university you're applying to, don't feel like you need to add letters 4 and 5 if you don't think they'll be as strong. The next question I often get from students is, which teachers do I ask? By the time you're a senior in high school, you've had a lot of teachers, and so it can be pretty tough to figure out which ones to actually ask. So now I'll give you a few rules of thumb on how to actually choose those teachers. First and foremost, make sure you're choosing teachers who do teach in core subject areas. Maybe you are a star music student or a really good artist. You can submit letters from your art teacher or your music teacher as those additional optional letters of recommendation at most colleges or universities. But make sure that at least 2 of your teachers are in core subject areas. Also, make sure you've had these teachers fairly recently. I encourage you, if possible, to choose teachers you've had junior year of high school because they've known you most recently and they've seen your most recent potential. And so although you might have done really well in a freshman class, asking a teacher who hasn't had you as a student since freshman year isn't going to be the best option. I also encourage you to choose teachers in whose classes you've done really well in. Maybe you love your chemistry teacher, but you've gotten C's on every test in chemistry for the entire year. Although they might be a great person and you might have a great relationship with them, they're not going to be able to speak about your academic abilities in the letters, thus making them not the best person to ask for a letter of recommendation. I also encourage you to ask teachers who you have a positive relationship with. You might have done really well in a class, but maybe you've literally never had a conversation with that teacher outside of class. That's probably not the best person to ask either, because they're not going to be able to comment on any other aspects of you as a student and you as an applicant. And so they might be able to say, so-and-so was a star student in the class, but honestly, that's all I know. I just know they got A's. So try to choose someone who you have some sort of a relationship with, who know more about you than just what scores you got on the test that they gave you. Alright, so hopefully after listening to those tips, you've identified some teachers who might be good fits for asking for letters of recommendation. The next step is actually asking them. How do you ask them? What do you say? Do you send an email? What do you do? And so my recommendation is ask your teachers in person at the end of your junior year of high school. Some students think that waiting until their senior year is fine, but I highly discourage against that. A lot of teachers like to use the summer months as a time to write these letter of recommendations, and some teachers will actually limit how many letters they're even willing to write for students. And for that reason, asking early and before the long summer break, I think is the best timing by far. Asking in person also shows a higher degree of initiative and professionalism, and is something that I think many teachers will appreciate. So don't just take the easy way out and send that email. Instead, hang around after class or maybe come into school early so that you can sit down and have a chat with your teacher and formally ask them to write you a letter of recommendation for college. And then if they agree to write the letter of recommendation, that's awesome. You don't have too many more steps than you have to take. But something I do encourage that you do is send them an email once they've agreed. You had your in-person meeting, it went well, they agree. Go home that evening and send an email with a few things. First, you'll just want to thank them for agreeing to write the letter again, because being appreciative and being thankful is never a bad thing. You'll also want to include in that email your resume. And even though the teacher might know you well, a resume is really helpful to have when writing a letter of recommendation because it reminds the letter writer what you've done, what you've accomplished, and what kind of applicant you are positioning yourself as. I also encourage that you include upload instructions for what they actually do with the letter they write, as well as a deadline for when you would like the letter finished by. I encourage you to make that deadline 1 to 2 weeks before the actual deadline, just in case something goes wrong and they're a little delayed in writing the letter. And then finally, ask them in that email if there's anything else they want in order to write the letter of recommendation. A lot of teachers will be perfectly fine with the things that I just outlined, but some may have additional things that they think may be helpful when writing you a letter of recommendation. And so asking what they might need is never a bad idea either. And then once you send that email, you're off the hook for a while. The summer months go by, hopefully, fingers crossed, your teachers are writing you the letter of recommendations. And then come September, it's a good idea to just check in to see how those letters are coming. Some teachers may have already let you know they're finished, and in that case, perfect, you've nothing left to do. But if you haven't heard from those teachers, having a quick check-in with them in September to make sure those letters are coming along is a good idea so that you don't miss any important application deadlines. And then once all of your letters are in, breathe a sigh of relief. That part of the application process is over. And then I strongly encourage my students to handwrite thank you letters to any teacher who wrote you a letter of recommendation. Because I think that writing a handwritten letter shows appreciation and gratitude for all the time they spent actually writing you that letter of recommendation. And that's really all there is for letters of recommendation. I hope that those tips were helpful for you and that you guys feel a little more confident going in and asking for letters of recommendation for your college application process. If you guys have any additional questions about letters of recommendation, please either send me an email or comment on this video, and I'll get back to you guys as quickly as possible. If you learned anything at all from this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more tips and tricks for the college application process. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.